Perfect. Awesome. All right. Shall I kick it off or you?
Well, let me do the kickoff. It's always an honour. So,
and also, maybe I've got this link ready to go in the chat box because it ties in with today's theme. So,
terrific.
If you want to mention.
All right. Well, let's get going, guys. So, yet again, we're very happy to be, I believe it's week 6 with the one and only Emma Doyle. She is an inspirational human being. She's also one of the world leaders in coaching. As an elite coach, she's achieved outstanding things working in Australia, representing the country over 20 times. Not only that, her energy, her enthusiasm is just phenomenal. And this is our Empower Hour with Emma. We're very excited, Em, to continue on with our themes. So, again, without further ado, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the first thing, as I go over and share my screen, I just wanted to mention with today's module 6, being about reframing your story in a realistic way. So that's what the module is. And I've got a great story around the TEDx talk that I did in Oneonta 2017. So I'm just going to type in the chat box there. I'm just going to put the link in. So if anyone hasn't seen it, you might want to just copy and paste that link or take a photo of it because it does relate certainly to a story that I was telling myself and how I had to reframe that story with my TEDx. So there's the link there on Unleashing Female Potential, which I would obviously love for everyone to check out when you get a minute. So just as I jump over and share my screen, I'd love to see in the chat box, just again, where I know a lot of you now, I can see the regulars. I appreciate, especially those that have done all 6 modules. There's at least 4 or 5 of you on today that haven't missed a module. So thank you so much. And yeah, if you can just type in the chat box, I'd love you today to type in something a little different. So we'll go with the weather temperature in wherever you are right now. You could describe it in any way you like and type it in the chat box just while I jump over and share my screen. So say New Jersey and then tell me how you're feeling. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it snowing? What is going on in the chat box there so I can have a look at the chat as we go along, as we normally do. Nice and humid. Do you like the humidity, Lauren?
No.
Thanks for unmuting yourself and letting me know. And don't forget, remember, I'm still getting used to Fahrenheit there. So I don't know whether Conrad can convert Fahrenheit to Celsius easily yet, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm with you, Em. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Celsius. Thank you. I feel better now. All right. Awesome. So you are in the right place if you are here for the Empower Hour, which is a part of the Empowerment Project series. It's my pleasure to bring this to you. And thank you, Isabel. Welcome, Florida. Oh, wow. That is hot. 92 sounds hot. So thanks for being here with us. Let's check out our genius model. Let's have a look. I know it's a bit confusing, but this is where we've gone so far. Module 1, creating awareness, and we went up to patterns, morning and evening routines. Then we went down to language, empowering language, followed by values, wanting to really get your values sorted, because that drives your behavior. Then we went up to the top, the crown of the genius model. We looked at self-esteem, and I wonder if anyone can remember the confidence formula. Anyone want to have a go at typing that in the chat box? Confidence equals, the first word started with T, something plus E. Confidence equals, anyone? I sound like Ferris Bueller. I'm not sure, Conrad, if anyone remember that movie.
Oh, yeah, of course. I love that movie.
Jin Wang, the first one in. Yes, thank you. Time plus experience divided by a positive attitude. I love that we've got the regulars on, that those types of formulas are sticking. This is wonderful news. So where are we today? Today is under the core module of relationships. And specifically, and we touched on reframing within empowering language, but today the reframing works with your story in a realistic way. So that's where we are today. And next week we go towards direction under your purpose. Some pretty cool ways how to make fast decisions and align your heart, your head, and your gut. So pretty pumped about that. I know I say that with every module, but it's exciting. So this is where we are, reframing the story. So really the question to ask yourself, is the script that you're running in your head over and over again, is it really serving you? Is it stopping you from being the best version of yourself possible? And this is an evolution. It's an ongoing, you know, you never sort of rewrite your story and then that's it. This is a constant evolution of, once you learn this unbelievable tool and technique, I promise you, it will, and you continue to practice it, it will, it's a game changer. So that's where it is. All right, reviewing the game plan from last week. Let's see who did the who got the points. So in the chat box there, remember for 15 points, you had to ask 3 people what your superpowers were. So if you did that, or remember, if you're a parent, if you encouraged your child to do that, just pop yes in the chat box. Did you actually do that? Did you do it? Did you get the 15 points as a minimum? Beautiful, fantastic. To get 30 points, did you write down, collate all that information and then write down your superpowers? So in the chat box, if you did, of course, you know what I'm going to ask you. What was one of your 3 superpowers? So I'm going to type in one of my superpowers in the chat box, which of course is my energy, the energy that I bring to these modules every week. It does not change no matter what's going on in my life. One of your superpowers is courage. Thanks for sharing. Positivity, wonderful, excellent. And again, parents on the line, please encourage your children to do that exercise. And for 40 points, this was a real, something that again changed my life at 21. Kindness, thank you, Hong, thank you, fantastic. Was the sentence, who I am is the possibility of, and then picking 3 new things that you wanted to stretch. So in the chat box, if you could just type in one area that you chose to stretch yourself in. So I'm going to type in mine, because I obviously don't just say do this, I practice what I preach. So one of my stretch qualities is definitely with regards to detail and organisation, transferring onto my electronic calendar. Who I am is the possibility of being social, knowledgeable and capable. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love the way you wrote that. And that's from your boy. Fantastic. And remember the end of the sentence, and that is who I am. And if you can practice saying that in front of a mirror, that's a fantastic example there from your boy. So awesome work on the game plan. So well done, everybody, for module 5 on building up that self-esteem. So awesome work. All right, let's start as we always do in section 1, which is our motivation. Why is this important to you, and what are some of your potential unforced errors as it relates to story? And I know Conrad challenged us all last week. He said that he wanted to know what people's challenges were. Really, like with this section, while listening to what I'm having to say from my clients and from my own experience, really have a think about what's going on for you. So some of the potential problems you may be experiencing is, I don't know why, but bad things keep happening to me. Like this keeps happening to me. It's almost like you don't know how to change your life. And so you say things like, oh, I always get into trouble, or this always seems to be my unlucky, I'm just the most unluckiest person in the world. And so you play almost the victim card. And you're reacting to the world potentially. The other one that you may experience is you're just stuck in your old patterns because it's comfortable. Remember, that's okay. Most people, you know, will avoid change at all costs. But you know, it's very hard to really, again, just stretch that onion as we worked on last week. But you get stuck and you feel so far away from what you want. So if your starting point's here, but what you really want is way out here, you actually, you know, you do want a different, maybe you want a different circumstance or you want to change something, but you actually just don't have a roadmap on how to get there. If anyone's feeling brave enough, maybe to pop in some stories, you know, there, what, you know, I certainly, the first TEDx talk that I applied for, I didn't get in, even though I had an unbelievable person endorse me. And so the story that I was telling myself is, I'm just not good enough. I'm just not good enough. So that was, you know, I thought I'm not good enough to do a TEDx. I thought that was too far out of my reach. So that was the story that I was telling myself until a friend of mine just said, get over yourself and, you know, just because you didn't get in the first time, reapply. So I needed to change my story on that. Does anyone want to pop anything in there if you can relate to any unforced errors, things that you tell yourself? And maybe, you know, I can obviously, as we go, even address some of those as we're there. But it's just that, you know, we all have them going on. All the stories we do have them going on in our mind. So I'll keep moving on, but have a reflection for yourself on that as we do every week. What's going on for you, and why this module might be important for you. So let's flip our unforced errors into winners. And just before we do, actually, someone has shared one. So I'm more fortunate than most people I crossed paths. Yeah, so that can be a real, you know, not necessarily an unforced error. Like that story in itself, actually feeling fortunate or, you know, can be a positive thing. And which I think that's the way that you meant that. I'm certainly somebody who always visualizes a car park out the front of wherever I want to go, and I feel like the luckiest parker in the world. Or is that just the story that I'm telling myself? I'm not sure, but I think that's a great example. So thanks for sharing that. So instead, when we flip our unforced errors into potential promises, you know, just a couple of little affirmation type quotes. I deserve to be happy. My relationships will improve. Remember, this is realistic reframing with our relationships. I can work with the universe to create what I want. I have clarity on what I need to focus on. And I have energy and excitement towards achieving my goals. So again, none of those statements are unrealistic, and none of those statements can't, you know, there's not aspects of those statements that are not within your control. So that's very much what this module is going to be focusing on as we flip. So just have a reflection on your own situation and just try and anything that you had there going on for you, any of those stories, just, you know, even practice flipping. That's a huge part of this unit for sure. So it's story time. Time for me to share a story. This is one of my, this is a pretty cool story. I really like this one. It's with a club that I worked at with a bunch of teams. Now, this club had just been given a new coach, and the new coach was young. And so in their minds already, the story they were telling themselves is that she was inexperienced. The old coach had a completely different coaching philosophy to the new coach. And so she was really, really struggling. And so I was sort of brought in to address that situation with like every single, like that whole day I had every single team. So what I did is I started with the whiteboard and we just listed and wrote down all of their problems. So for example, we just bullet points. I said, tell me, you can be as harsh as you want. Obviously that was out of earshot, you know, it was like a trust thing as well. And they listed all of their issues, like we're confused, coaches have different opinions, we've been learning one way, now somebody wants us to learn a different way, we're frustrated, we feel like we've got the wrong strategy and we keep standing in no man's land. I think Conrad will get a laugh out of that one. And literally they were just really unhappy because it was so foreign and so unfamiliar, even though it's funny because, you know, the coach was, the young coach's philosophies I thought were fantastic. But obviously I couldn't just come in and say that. So that was step one. We listed all of their issues. Then step two was that we then, I asked them a really critical question, which was, well, why do you play tennis? Why are you actually here? And they're like, to learn, to exercise, to have fun and friendships. I was like, okay. Then we went out on court, and any of those things that they were unsure about, we made sure we put a game plan in place to address positioning on court, to address where to stand, to address how to talk to your partner. All of those things, like actually from a technical or a tactical viewpoint, even though we didn't necessarily get through the whole list, but we created a game plan for the future. And then finally, we rewrote their story. So I'm going to read out their story. And as you can see there in some of the pictures, we laminated a photo of the team and we put the story on the back of the laminated card. They stuck that on their racket bag and they had to read it before they played every single week. So this was their story. We believe that we are growing and learning tennis and life lessons every time we play. We find the balance between power and control, and we love to anticipate our court positioning. We enjoy the exercise that comes from being outdoors, and we support our teammates and friends. We understand that if it doesn't go there, it doesn't matter. We love to make plans together, and we make brave decisions on and off the court. So imagine, so that's laminated on the back of their team photo. They each had a little affirmation card as well. And then, imagine before you go out to play, that's the story that you're telling yourself rather than all the other things that were going on. And that was just a pretty cool success story. The power of just a little paragraph and how the relationships with the coach and with each other and with the teams transformed when, certainly in discussion with the coach post that day was really quite inspiring. And certainly that's why I coach. So that was pretty cool little story. All right. Right, first person to type in the chat box, how many strategies do we do every single week? Who's going to be the first one? Who's going to be the first one? How many strategies we always share? How many strategies? 5. Yes. All right, thank you, team. 5 strategies. Let's get going. The first strategy that I want to share is the power of stories. So the power of stories is the first strategy. Now, what do I mean by this? And do stories actually affect the mind? And do they really hold that much influence? Well, according to research by psychologists Green and Brock, so this isn't according to Emma Doyle, quite literally, stories are able to transport our mind to another place. And in this place, we may embrace things that we normally scoff at in the harsh and real world. Now, anthropologists tell us that storytelling is central to human existence. Conrad and I know that from Aboriginal storytelling back in Australia. I'm sure Native American storytelling has been around for centuries. So even though I've got a photo there of Jim Lair, who I want to speak about in just a minute, this storytelling concept of actually handwriting in a journal your story and rewriting your story, and the connection between the hand and the brain is so powerful, and it has been around for years and years and years. The 2 biggest people that have influenced my life with regards to stories and when I really started retelling my story was Jim Lair and Bob Litwin. Bob Litwin's book, Live the Best Story of Your Life. Highly recommend that. And let me just, if you just actually look at Jim Lair online, he also has many stories on this, but he's even got some great YouTube clips just on the power of story. And, certainly one thing that Jim has certainly told me over the years, or for decades, at the Human Performance Institute, he's been examining the power of stories to increase engagement and productivity, not just in the sports world, but also with Fortune 500 companies. It has paid millions to send employees to his program, in which he implies the principles and methods that he now offers in his book. He said, our capacity to tell stories is one of our most profound gifts. Your story is your life, essentially. Telling ourselves stories provides structure and direction as we navigate life's challenges and opportunities and help us interpret our goals and skills. Stories make sense of the chaos. In the words of Bob Litwin, he says, how thoughts become words, then they become your actions, and then they become your stories. We use stories to make sense of the world and to share that understanding with others. They are the signal within the noise. So even though I was just reading verbatim some of the quotes from Bob and Jim there, to me, you know, that is why they're so powerful. We are master storytellers, and what we say does become our reality. Our subconscious mind can't tell the difference between reality and non-reality. So what we're feeding our inner voice and our inner coach becomes our story of our life. And, you know, I think it's the best way, again, I'll read again, if I may, to give an example of Bob Litwin, one of his stories. There's something called Tennis Congress. It's, again, it's an event, huge event. And this is the opening speech from this event. So this is the old story. Sorry, let me start again. What if a lot of the information drops through the cracks? I'm concerned about getting what I need. I worry that I might not be as good as the other players. I don't learn well in a group. I never took an off-court lesson. I might be better or worse than everybody else in my lesson. Some coaches talk too much, some talk too little. Change is hard. It's painful. I've tried and tried, but I've never been able to improve my game. So that's the old story of potentially what people in the room could have been thinking, could be what they could be telling. How will I be able to take it all in? So here's a story that may work. In other words, a new story. I'm supportive of others in my group. I build my muscle of patience to grow as a player and person. I start my day with a class that will take me from my left brain to my right by quietening the noise and creating an environment of receptivity. I will check my skepticism and doubt at the door while in the world of Tennis Congress. I believe that almost all that I do is a habit, and I can create new habits. I believe that while requiring commitment and work, that changes I want to make can be fun and easy as I relax my resistance and allow the new in. I'm the master of self-discipline. My middle name is Can Do. Positivity flows out of me. And then goes on a little bit more, but I'll stop there. I think you get the idea of just how powerful that is when we flip our old story into something new. It was realistic, what I just read then, and it wasn't outcome based, which we'll get to that in a minute. So important, the power of story. Strategy number 2, okay, is results versus process. Now, I just want to clarify here, when you're rewriting your story or when you're reframing your story into your new story, adding in results, for example, winning a gold medal or winning a championship, is great when you're doing your goal setting. But with regards to rewriting a realistic story, as much as you can, make sure it's a process-driven story, because that'll give you a growth mindset. And it'll allow you potentially to win the gold medal or win the championship, but it's not necessarily the be all and end all. So the paragraph that you write when you're rewriting your story is it's 99% process driven. With your goal setting, I'm a big believer in goal setting. 50% results and 50% process, not a problem. But this is a technique of rewriting a story. This is a 1-paragraph story about what you're telling yourself. So the more you can make that realistic and process and empowering, the better. So that's strategy number 2. Things that are in your control, essentially. Strategy number 3 definitely ties into module 1 and from awareness, self-awareness, and also the module on just an IPOV. Remember, just an interesting point of view. And that is strategy number 3 is your current reality. So what I'm talking about here is zero judgment. So when you write your old story, you can write it in a way where literally you just have an acceptance of where you're at, and you can go to town if you want. You can write down just without any judgment, just pick a starting point, and whatever comes to you, whatever comes up. And I'm going to tell you a really cool way how to do that under the tactics section. But just take a current snapshot of your reality when you're writing your old story. This may be a PowerPoint that you may want to take a photo of there's 2 sections to it. Because when we're now obviously moving from the process of your old story into your new story, one of the ways that you can do that is by asking what we call laser questions. So by asking questions, you open up possibilities, and remember that taps into the growth mindset of what is it that you want to change, and do you actually want to change it as well? If you want to stay stuck in your old story, by all means, go ahead. A lot of people do, but no one who's here live on this webinar is definitely feeling that. So ask yourself the following laser questions. These are life coaching questions, and they're absolutely brilliant. So there's 2 sections. I'll pull up the first section. So after you rewrite your old story, then ask yourself, what is the truth here? What are you making that story mean? What is it going to take to change? What do you have control over? Is this really working for you? Some great questions. The other half, now if you want to take a photo of that screen, they are some pretty awesome laser questions as I read out the second piece of the laser questions. What are you willing to let go of with regards to the old story? What is at the core of the issue for you? Potentially, what's the lesson? And who might have the answer? And do you really believe that? Like, is that really what you believe, that old story? And what if you could change what's possible? So they're what we call laser questions, and they help you flip the old story or the current story into the new story.
Emma, could I ask you a question?
Please.
These are just so on point. As you're speaking, I'm drumming some images in my head of working with some players, and I've had boys, girls. It's not a gender thing. It's just everyone goes through it at a different time where they're questioning maybe their purpose a little bit. What is my mission here? What am I really trying to do? And for some, let's call it kids, maybe 13, 14, they become a little bit more self-aware, I guess, and a little bit more, the pecking order comes in play a little bit. I'm third, why can't I be second? And so, you know how you get those little spikes, those little moments of success, and inevitably you get those dips which come along. So my question for you is, if I'm a person that I have these spikes of success, I get down into these dips, these challenging moments, and I struggle to get back another spike, or the other spike, it's not predictable. It might take, one time it takes a week, the next time it takes a month, the next time it takes a day. And so I start to become despondent with the process. And so my questioning towards myself might move back to the negative. The reframing becomes very challenging. So do you have any advice on anyone who may have that type of character or personality who very quickly gets back to the old way or very quickly gets to the negative?
Yeah. Great question. And by the way, extremely common and extremely on point and relevant for this entire module, because the answer lies within the strategies. So the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more opportunities you have to be able to reframe, get out of the trenches, and potentially you might be down. The time that you're in the trenches will be less and less. So the more tools you have, the less time you'll be in the trenches. So if you don't have any tools, you could be in the trenches for a year. You know, let's say if you have one tool, you might be in the down in the doldrums for 6 months. But if you've got 5 tools, then all of a sudden, you know, one of my catchphrases for ages was never down for more than half a day. I'm probably now around about an hour. I let myself really go down there for an hour, and then I say, right, which tool do I want to pull out? Now, this, for example, is a tool. And the one thing that Jim Lair and Bob Litwin both, you know, really, I've heard them say consistently, is that actually you need to rewrite your story every 30 days. So you've got your story there. I mean, how many people actually do that? I know that I wouldn't do that, but that's a strategy. So if I felt that I was going down into the trenches or on that downward spike, and I'm struggling to get myself out of this current situation, then just have a go at this as a strategy to ask yourself these laser questions, because half the time what's really going on is not reality. You know, I had a conversation with somebody, you know, yesterday who's, you know, I'm very close to, and I was, you know, complaining, so to speak, about certain things, and 50% of what I was complaining about wasn't real. They were my predictions of what I thought other people were thinking. And as you know,
that's a really incredible insight. And as we're talking, again, I'm sorry to ask this second question.
No, please do.
I've got a player that I work with who, you know, a really talented young kid. And we took a long time to build up confidence. We really did. I mean, a long time. And pre-corona, we got to a point that was a highlight, a real highlight. I'm talking, you know, making finals and things like that, which we didn't think would happen. Corona hit. And after Corona, everyone was struggling to get, you know, the feel back. Unfortunately, the player that I'm working with received certain information or feedback from someone who really is not relevant whatsoever in that circle. And that really hurt. And so the reframing became very difficult, and the negativity came back very quickly. So and we've been stuck in a hole a little bit since then. So that's where we're at with this one case. I wondered, you know, how could I help this person to reframe and even delete the information that was heard, because it wasn't true. It was absolutely not true.
So 2 things come to mind there is actually get him to write down the negative. And then what you would do is then go back, and next to the things that are untrue, he puts just an IPOV, just an interesting point of view. He sticks, you know, the module from last week. So if anyone missed that, please go ahead, jump on YouTube to the Centercourt YouTube channel and rewatch that. But that's the way, what we bust out self-limiting beliefs, because then you take that on as a belief about yourself. So there's another strategy where we bust out those beliefs because they're not true. They're not actually real. And then what you do, the sentences that are real, especially in their mind, that are important to them, then you go about rewriting the story. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that under the tactics. I think you'll get some really cool ideas as we reveal the tactics. But these laser questions, once you get them to write down the story, is a great strategy. And one other strategy that we're going to cover in. I'm working on something really cool at the moment called the performance code. And one of the sections on that is mind monsters, and getting them to draw the mind monster and draw the positive intent of the mind monster, which is another version of rewrite your story. So you never know, Conrad, we could even bring that to Centercourt as well. But that's, you know, there's lots of different strategies, and that's an example of, I've just listed off 4 things that this player could be doing. All right. So thanks for that, and I hope everybody else got some insights into the photo of the laser questions. So obviously we have one more strategy to go to round out strategy number 5. Now this is very much, again, I put my TEDx talk in the chat box before. This is the essence of my TEDx talk. One of the most key messages is to think about what I call a future-based reality. So when you're flipping your story, there's no real reason to think about the past. When we get stuck in the past, we get stuck in our story. So you have to think futuristically. So it's what is it that I want? Where am I going? What is it I want? So that you can come back and help you write your story. And you have to do that by reframing, because that's exactly what we do every single week. When I get you to flip your unforced errors into winners, you're reframing it based on a futuristic possibility. So we do that. We practice that every single week. The analogy that I like, I don't know whether you've ever done this before or you can perhaps relate, but if you've replaced the same picture or even a photograph, but you've put it in a new looking frame, or you've even changed where you put it in the house, and all of a sudden it's totally changed how you thought, how you felt, and how you viewed that same image just by changing the frame. And that's, that again is the technique of reframing. It's get a different perspective of your same reality, rise above it, look down on it, and see what is it that you want, rather than being stuck in your story. A lot of people get stuck in their story and they believe that to be true when it's actually half of what they believe isn't true at all. And that's why you get stuck in the trenches for a lot longer, the more you believe that. So there are five strategies. So first person in the chat box, who can write down what was strategy number 3? What was strategy number 3 in the chat box? Let's see, testing everybody's memory skills. We were taking a look at our current reality. Love it. The answers are coming through. Thanks, team. Fantastic. All right, where do we go next? As we always do now, how do you implement those strategies? This first one that I want to share is one of the coolest little tactics that I know in how to implement this strategy. So tactic number 1, of course, is write your old story, all right? But perhaps you might want to write this down. One of the best ways that I know, and what I've got a lot of my players to do in the past, you want to take a non-judgmental snapshot of your life, exactly where you're at today. Even if you're feeling sorry for yourself at the time, it's probably even easier to write down. But here's the thing. You start your story in your non-dominant hand. So I'm normally right-handed, and you write the story, don't type the story, okay, in a journal or a sheet of paper is fine. But start it in your non-preferred hand, and even just do that for 60 seconds, because what you'll find is it's so frustrating and it's so slow, and it's that when you flip the pen over, your dominant hand just goes blur and just goes onto the page, and there's your old story. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not quick enough, I'll never make the first team, I'll boom, 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 boom. Just put it all out there without any judgment. Just let it go. So that's tactic number 1. And the non-dominant hand is a really cool little technique around that. Well, fancy that. What's tactic number 2? You've seen this slide a million times. We do it every single week. Flip it. So when you flip your old story into your new story, here's a warning for you though, and a little story. When you flip it, you want to make it empowering and realistic, and remember, process orientated. So I've only ever had 2 clients that when they flipped it, they went a little extreme. Like, literally, it was a corporate client, and he's like, I'm going to meet the woman of my dreams, and I'm going to be earning $500,000, and I'm going to be promoted to, second in charge of the company. And it was, so it was great that he had to go. Okay. And that's what mentors are here for as well. But it was unrealistic, and obviously the jump was too extreme. So that's definitely not what rewriting your story is about. Remember, we're reframing it in a realistic way. So the key to doing that when you flip it is just look for process-driven words, empowering words, and realistic. It still has to be realistic. It might stretch you a little bit. Remember, like the onion from last week. from that module, but please, 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 you don't want to make it completely outside of that of your onion. If otherwise the gap is too big. And then strategy number 3, of course, is what we call boost your story. Now, again, what am I talking about with regards to boost? Well, you may require the support of a coach or a mentor or a close friend, but somebody who really believes in you and also maybe has the experience of knowing what you need to focus on to help you to get to where you want to go. With regards to boosting the story, another example, I had a client last week go through this process, and I only had to change 3 words on her new story. So she wrote her old story, she flipped it, and she wrote her new story in an empowering and realistic way. And the 3 words off memory, she had the word try. So I'm going to try and do this. So I just flipped the word try. I took the word try out of there instead and just wrote the word can. The other word that she had in there was, she had a statement, and then she had, so that I won't do X, Y, and Z. So we just got rid of that sentence because she didn't need the back half of the sentence. She already said what it is that she was going to do. And I can't remember the third one, but just as an example, just 3, all I had to do was cross out 1 sentence and change 2 other words. So the boost might not be, I'm not talking about we've really boosted up, but you do want to make sure that you have some sort of emotion connected to the story, because your emotions drive motion, and motion is taking action, and taking action helps you go in, remember, any direction. Remember the clarity paradox. Although, sorry, that's next week. I just dangling the carrot, so you're all dying to be with me again next week, I know, the clarity paradox. So they're the 3 tactics, and I bet you can almost guess, based on those tactics, what you have to do for the game plan for this week. Pretty simple, ladies and gentlemen, athletes, coaches, parents. For 15 points, you have to write down your old story. So nothing new there, no surprises with this module. For 30 points, you have to flip it and write down your new story, okay? For 40 points, you're going to boost it. So just take your new story and send it to myself, send it to Conrad, get us to read over it. It's 1 paragraph. It's not going to take a huge amount of time out of our life, and I'm sure we'll give you feedback and help you boost it so that the language is empowering. So the words, instead of words like even I should improve my fitness, it will be more of a process or an empowering word. Like I choose to focus on my leg strength is an example, how I just flipped a sentence there through the help of a mentor. And then I just wrote a little extra thing in brackets to win the game. Imagine if you were to read it out loud every single day for the next 7 days in front of the mirror. There's a little bonus, little extra challenge for you to win the game. So you know what I'm going to do. We're going to celebrate for all of you being here, and then we're going to say what's next, which is the module number 7, and it's about direction. So it lives under the core unit of purpose. I'm going to show you some really cool little strategies around decision making. And I'll get you to type in the chat box what you are going to take action on, because the ball, let's see if I hit my camera this week, is in your, I did.
Oh,
Got it this week. Got it.
good hand.
Got it. So the ball is in your court, and of course now time for Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but before we get to Q&A, I would love to know what you're going to take action on. So what is it that you're going to do? You're going to go 15 points? Are you going to go for the game? What are you going to do? Type in the chat box. You don't have to type in any part of your old story, because that does take some time. But I'd love to know what you are going to do. Lauren is going to win the game. Lauren, you are a superstar, and I appreciate you, and I love that. I love that you take a photo of the game plan each week, and I love that you're crushing it in every module when you go for the game. All right, so that pretty much concludes this awesome module on stories and storytelling. Just before actually we get into Q&A, if I may, Conrad, just let everybody know. Let me just double check.
Yep.
I'd love to just let everybody know about the virtual tennis symposium.
Please, yeah, amazing.
So it's in the, I've stuck it in the chat box there. Now, so next week, I'm going to be running a virtual tennis symposium for the coach, player, and the parent. Now, if you're not tennis-based and there's some other speakers there who will focus not purely on tennis as well. So there'll be some really interesting there's 3 presentations every single day. It's 1 p.m., 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know most of you are over on the East. And the exciting news, drum roll, ting, is that Conrad and I are going to be doing one together. A bit like how we do this situation, because I love bouncing off Conrad, and he just sparks ideas and we spark ideas in each other. And we're going to be talking about the car ride home and how to build your tennis resilience muscle. It's a free symposium, or you can donate to, we've chosen 3 charities, Judy Murray Foundation, the Future Champions Foundation, and the Women's Coaching Association. You can make a donation and you can have a lifetime access to all of those presentations. We have Gigi Fernandez and Emilio Sanchez and Conrad Singh and Emma Doyle. And so it's going to be a great week, and I'm emceeing a lot of the presentations, and there is the link there.
And if I can just say one little thing there, some of the amazing presenters that you have, we were fortunate to have them on our tennis webinars during the lockdown period. And although it sounds like they're all really tennis specific, a lot of the messages and a lot of the take home is really general. You can adapt a lot of it to pretty much everything. So
especially the one that you and I will be speaking on. So ours will be, let me just triple check so I don't send everybody a curveball, but I'm pretty sure are on together next Thursday, the 16th of July. And that's 12 p.m. Mountain Standard, so that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's next Thursday. So if anyone, you're all welcome to join. You can watch it for free for 24 hours, or like I said, make a very small donation to 3 charities that we chose. And the reason that I'm doing this symposium is because the number one question that I get asked, no matter what topic I'm presenting on, is parents, and how everyone can do a better job of relating to parents. And so I just thought, you know what, parents are amazing, and parents are so important in the triangle. And I wanted to run a whole week of helping coaches really embrace parents, and I want parents to embrace coaches. So I wanted to bridge, I think there's too much of a gap between parents and coaches. And so I wanted more strategies and tools on especially communication, the car ride, what to say pre and post matches, / that could be a hockey match, it could be a lacrosse match. So that's essentially what Conrad and I will be talking about. So there's the link there in the chat box. So back to, we've got 9 minutes for questions about anything to do with story, anything to do with Module 6. Please either type it in the chat box, or Conrad always has a question for me.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's only because you give me so many thoughts. But look, I think as a coach and as a parent, I'm going to talk as a parent if I can. I've got 2 kids, extraordinary kids like everyone does. Mine are 8 and 6, and they couldn't be more different. My daughter is so strong and independent. She's a machine. My son is very sensitive, but he's still, you know, got his own way. I'm just trying to find for my son the way to get him to start reframing, because it's a challenge. Like I said, the amount of stamina that they have, and everyone's different, before, or tolerance, if you want to call it, before they lose it. My son's got that much, and my daughter's got that much. So, we're, you know, as a coach and as a parent, I'm constantly trying to find a way. So this reframing thing, I've actually been using it with him, and I'm seeing changes. Like, I'm getting him to actually out loud say the opposite of how he's acting, and it works. So if it can work for him, I'm sure it can work for everyone.
I love that. I love that. And I love how, especially young children, they really mirror pretty much, you know, every sort of language that we do wrong, they'll repeat it back. And so it's like a mirror of your own poor coaching behavior. I know, like with little kids, especially, you know, when they ask why, yeah, but why, but why, but why, but why, just get them to reframe instead of but and why, and then keep giving them, exploring it with them. And my two favorite things with kids, from a parenting perspective, is just to begin your sentences with "can you." You know, I challenge. You know, this is a challenge. Like, can you? Boom, 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 boom. And then once they do the challenge, when they, you know, oh, what was that? What was that about? Tell me more. Just tell me more. Because one thing I find with parents and with coaches, we jump in the space too quickly, and we just want to solve the problem because it's easier. You know, how do I do up my shoelace? Well, here, just give it to me because we're running late. I'll do it for you, rather than, you know, helping them explore and get it wrong and problem solve, you know, for 20 minutes before you leave the house. Not everyone could do that. But it is, oh, I just said, but see how and the more you become self-aware. Yeah, I caught myself. And that's one of the keys, I think, as a parent and as a coach, to, you know, just the power words, the little power words, especially if you're going to rewrite your story, you definitely probably are not going to want to put a but within any of the sentences. It's like, I'm really good at this, but boom, 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 just and. You know, I'm really good at this, and I'm looking forward at improving this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If
Cool.
no one asks the question, you know I'm gonna. Am I allowed to?
No, well, we'll give. If anyone wants to ask a question, just type in the chat box, and then we can go to you.
We'll deviate. But
yeah.
Here's my question. I had a parent yesterday who's awesome, real supporter, great for her kid. You know, really, really wonderful mom as a, you know, aspiring athlete, very positive. Asked me the question of, is it healthy, or how the question was, how many hours is it healthy for me to watch my child practice? Wow. I'm like, well, I give you a million different opinions because I've seen a million different situations work. But at the end, it comes down to the relationship you have with your child. I'd love your take on that, Em. In a sport like tennis, again, like tennis people, what do you think? How would you answer that?
Well, I think definitely you need to weigh up personalities of the parent and the player, because obviously some children really need to know, you know, little things to help them feel safe and belonging, because that's the first human need, is certainty. But once you take care of that, the best advice I give to parents is unpredictability. So because that's the second human need, so that's interesting. So in other words, if the child can get used to not relying on mum or dad said that they're going to be there to watch my entire match. Let's say that mum or dad get an important phone call and they step away from the match to take that call. That child shouldn't then lose that set because, hey, you said you were going to be there for the entire match or game or whatever it is. So I like a little bit of unpredictability in both practice and in, because there's no science, there's no formula, there's no set number of hours. But if they understand those first two human needs, certainty, hey, you know what, I'm definitely going to pick you up. I'm not going to let you know, and if not, I'll be able to let you know. But the second human need being uncertainty. So let's add that unpredictability. Let's add that uncertainty so that the child has tools to be able to cope on their own. If mum or dad are not there, that they pack their own racket bag, and they or their kit bag or their playing bag, so they know where the water is, they know where the extra hydration gels are. Funny story, I was in Lithuania taking a group of players away, and one of my players was 7-6 in the third, and we'd only flown in all the way from Australia, like less than 48 hours in the country. And my player was really struggling, so I put a bunch of glucose tablets on her racket bag. Like I just leant over and I popped them on the racket bag, and the parent of the other player comes over and gets all the glucose tablets and puts them in his mouth. Funniest thing I've ever seen. And so, you know, I think that's another, you know, I've obviously, like most of us, seen all the extreme versions.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that everyone's got a story like similar to that on both sides, even parents watching coaches when they coach and how sometimes disgusting their language is.
Yeah.
You know, so I see it from all sides. That's why next week's so important to me, because I want to be able to come from all perspectives, and I want to be able to just give tips from multiple different people from the lens cap of all three, because it doesn't work if you don't, you know, the players are, the triangle that I'll show next week is the players at the center. You've got the parent at the top for sure, because, you know, no one loves their kid more than the parents, generally speaking. Then the coach at the side, and at the other side is strategies, practical strategies, like these modules. These modules, you're going to walk away, you know, if you think I don't know, Lauren, are you good at maths? You can work this out for me. 3 tactics a week multiplied by 9 modules. You're going to walk away with how many strategies is that?
27.
Thank you, Lauren.
Emma, while you're there, you got a question from Lauren. Lauren, do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah, go.
The question is, how often do you review, like, your story?
I was meant. Thank you for asking that question, because I was meant to say that under tactic number 3. Every 30 days is what the Jim Lair and Bob Litwin both recommend. I don't change my story as often as that, but I do think it's a good, you know, it's a good thing to, yeah, maybe you don't need to change the entire thing, but once a month, you may want to just check in with your story. You also may want to check in with your story. Remember when Conrad said, when you got it on a dip. So when you're in the trenches, and you need to help sort of pull yourself out of it, might be a good time to revisit your story. Great question. Thank you for reminding me to say that. Cool. Well, we got 4:59 by my watch.
Yeah, 6:59 here. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe we could just type in some gratitude in the chat box. I know that I'm really grateful, especially, you know, to everyone. And maybe we've even got a couple of new people. I see some names there I don't recognise. So just type in some gratitude in the chat box, especially as it relates to your story. Yeah, beautiful. And
we've got a couple of parents who are there, and a couple of kids who are from our tennis academy that signed in today, nice. Emma, which is exciting. Yeah, fantastic. And I'm just writing up my gratitude. I'm really grateful for everyone that is here live. That's an extra commitment that is huge. And committing week in, week out. You know, I know a lot of you have been here. So, and for this learning opportunity and thank you so much, everybody. And who can type in the chat box, what's next week? What's the module on next week? Who can remember? It is to do with our what? Yeah, nice. So we're going to be looking at some, as I said, some pretty cool little, the purpose matrix. We're going to look at your purpose statement. And again, it's, you know, it's almost simplifying your story down to one sentence. And I'm excited to bring that to you. I'll be doing a webinar right before it. So Conrad, I'll be right on the dot into that one. So, sure.
So I'm sure we can make that happen. But thanks everybody. And look forward to seeing everyone next week, and hopefully please at the virtual symposium, type in the chat box. You say, hey, it's me from the webinar. I'm here. And pay it forward. Tell somebody about these webinars and please let them know about the YouTube Centercourt channel and pay it forward. So
Emma
signing
Doyle,
off.
you are a legend. Thank you very much, Em.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Jing. Thanks, Hung.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.